Welcome to our webcast where we interview our friends that we think have very cool careers.
This guy's got a great career.
Our friend Dave Eggar has the kind of career that when you're in college you can only dream about having. He plays a concerto one weekend and then the next weekend he's in the recording studio with Beyonce or Paul Simon, Coldplay, Taylor Swift, Imagine Dragons, or Amy Winehouse, or Foreigner.
And then the next week he's doing some new piece that's just fantastically soloistic cello. It's amazing.
And then the next week he's doing a black belt karate seminar somewhere in Tennessee.
Oosh.
So we're going to find out how Dave got this incredible career. Let's welcome our friend Dave Eggar.
Hey guys, how's it going?
We're so excited to have you on the new show that we're starting.
I love this show. I'm so excited to be on this show. I think I have some other friends who've been on it as well, I was noticing.
We introduced you a little bit, and I know everybody's going to want to get to the point of like, how do I get a career like Dave's? Like everyone's going to want that. But we want to know about your path from like college days. So I want to hear, I know you went to Harvard and Juilliard. So I just want to hear a little bit about where your head was when you were in those schools.
Nope, absolutely. I mean, I think growing up, like most of us classical musicians, I had tunnel vision. Like I was doing competitions, I was doing, all-state orchestra, New York Youth Symphony, kind of every kind of orchestra thing I could get my hands on, and going to Juilliard pre-college. I don't think I really thought a lot about what a career in music would look like. I think I was too busy just trying to win auditions and not mess up. And I'm not sure even when I applied to college that I was thinking I would really be able to make a career in music, which is, I think, one of the reasons I ended up going to Harvard University a bit on a fluke for my undergraduate, which is that I won the Young Arts competition. In my audition, there was actually a Harvard recruiter there, and he had suggested that I apply because they had a scholarship, like kind of like a scholarship for each instrument. And I was like, that's crazy. And so I did, and I got in. But I think through a lot of my college years, I was like definitely questioning music as a career. I did pre-med in college. I did have a fellowship at the Aspen Music Festival. So in the summers, I was playing in Aspen Chamber Symphony, which was really amazing because it was a lot of like Chicago symphony players, and Nick Ennett was in it. And it was like some really high class players. So as scary as it was giving me still as a teenager, high level professional orchestra experience, which came back to serve me really, really well later, even though at the time there definitely were concerts I went into feeling panicked. Did my master's and doctorate at Juilliard, though by the second year of my master's, I was already, like most of us in New York, I think the most powerful part of going to grad school in New York is that you're already freelancing. I met you when I was just starting my master's at Juilliard, a gentleman named Todd Frazier, who is a fabulous composer from Houston, Texas, had concocted something called the American Festival in the Arts. And it was, I believe, and Keve, you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it was all American composers except we played Mozart Clarinet Quintet for some reason. But I guess that, it was like American composers and the Mozart Clarinet Quintet.
That is so funny.
I believe that it's part of the Mormon doctrine that Mozart was here in America. So
exactly, like upstate New York, the additional Mozart pieces were found. It's all great. But it was a lot of fun. We had a string quartet, and you guys had an amazing quintet, which included Steve Williamson, who's gone on to have the most impressive clarinet career known to man. But and we toured, kind of went everywhere in Texas. And one of the funny things I remember was we played this march band camp in Abilene. There was a gentleman named Ken Lample on the tour. And, he's like, oh yeah, you guys are going to teach the march band camp. And I'm looking at like 100 march band students, and I'm like with my little cello, and we're about to play like Ives first string quartet. I'm like, what am I going to say? I was like absolutely terrified of these march band kids.
it's just so funny that you're calling it a march band. I can't wait to have this released.
I'm so sorry. Is that totally wrong? Is that like
it's marching band, but no, to keep calling it march band. That's the best.
I'm sorry. That's like dumb string player like stuff. Sorry.
But it's awesome.
We're too
Yeah,
busy
so that's
playing.
how you and I met. We met touring Texas, and then we both went back to New York City and continued our freelance careers. And my career went like this and yours went like this, and we didn't see each other until decades later. But you went on to have this so cool, unique career that I think so many musicians are like, how do I make that happen? How do I get to be in a recording studio with, someone like Paul Simon or Amy from Evanescence and all these, John Legend, like your bio is crazy, crazy. And you've played with hundreds of pop artists. And I want to hear the story of like the very first one, if there is one.
It was a very conscious decision for me to stretch beyond classical. And it happened sort of right at the beginning of, going back to Juilliard from my master's and really understanding how competitive it was to get an orchestra job and just not being sure I wanted one. I was really torn. There was like the competitive part we all have as classical players. It's like, win that audition and take that audition. And then there was a part of me that's like, I don't necessarily want to even move to, Omaha and be in the Omaha Symphony, even if I was lucky enough to get through all those rounds of that impossible audition. And so, I started doing a lot of contemporary music with Joel Sachs at Juilliard, and I really loved just using the cello in new ways. Very soon after I started going to Juilliard, Tom Chu, Kenji Bunch, Neil DeFalo, and myself started the Flux Quartet, which ended up becoming a pretty important quartet in terms of new music. And then literally the way I ended up playing my pop career all started because of a sign on a phone pole that said cellist wanted for full project. And the funny thing about all this is I'm actually working with that artist this week. And his name's John Presnell. And his number was there, and I was out for a walk feeling lost, and I looked at that sign and it said cellist wanted, and I'm like, what do I have to lose? I'm going to call this number. And I met John Presnell. I cannot tell you how many hours I had to practice his songs that now I probably could just improvise. I could probably sit in without even hearing it. Oh my God, every song I must have practiced for like 8 hours to even begin to come up with anything that didn't sound dissonant and terrible, to try to understand just a whole new style.
But that's one thing that's great about you is you take it so seriously that you would practice 8 hours to do one song. A lot of cellists would think that it's nothing and not do a good job, but not even realize that they're not doing a good job. So that's great.
Well, thank you. One of the things that I really feel that contemporary classical music gave me that I think is beautiful is it really taught me to respect the composer, whoever she or he is. Like whether it's Nora Jones or Huang Ro or, Dave Sanborn, to just walk into the room with an open mind and realize that our job is not to sit there and have snooty opinions, whether it's Jason Robert Brown or John Corigliano or a startup songwriter who's doing their first song. Our job is to respond to that creator and to realize their ideas. And that really is where our talent should emerge, not in having opinions. That's for critics. That's not for players, I think. And so, I feel, and Keve, I have to say, sidebar, you do this so beautifully as a player. I've seen you do it with so many different kinds of artists. So I feel like I want to be like you also. So I'm going to say that because I've seen you do it and you're so great.
I wish I was doing that with Beyonce like you are, but I'll take what I can get. Speaking of Beyonce, you have played with hundreds of artists, okay?
Yeah.
Hundreds. So now that we've got the story of the first one, I want to hear the top 3 that you were like, I cannot believe I'm in this room doing this right now. Can you give me 3? I know you can give me more.
I've worked with so many, and sometimes the ones that really blow you away are not necessarily like the woohoo, it's the most famous. Roberta Flack was for me, weirdly. And I think it's just because she's so good. And the role that I played in that record was more of an intimate role playing wise. I was very sort of integral to the part. So I kind of loved that. I do have to say, Lindsey Stirling blew my mind. She really did, very unexpectedly, because when I was opening for Lindsey and playing her show, which I did for the whole tour of 2018 summer, I didn't go in with any expectations. And to see an instrumentalist command an audience like that and create a show where she choreographed, wrote the music, played, designed costumes, I was like so much more than I could ever imagine myself doing. And yet she has such a big heart, and she was so unbelievably supportive of me and everyone all summer long, even though all the pressure was on her. And all the kids who would line up at the meet and greet, like she'd have like 100 7-year-olds with violins to sign. I mean, she's done such great work for all of us as classical players to get kids excited. So I did get to arrange and play for Paul Simon, which was huge for me. And then, of course, I do have to just say that throughout the entirety of my career since 2005, Amy Lee from Evanescence has been a huge mentor of mine. I don't think I would have been nearly as effective as a musician in my non-classical career without working with a singer of that nuance and caliber and really understanding the level of musicianship that it takes to make records that great. And I just feel like it's such a wonderful thing as a classical player. Like, we tend to make it about competition, but I feel like if you make it about inspiration, just like we should all want to do that great solo. It shouldn't be like, oh my God, I'm so scared I won't.
One thing I saw with you with working with young arts too is the way you're able to inspire kids to have that feeling, right? You're able to really inspire them to do their best and not be scared. And you're also the great connector. I mean, Kerry and I love to connect people. That's kind of what we do. And you are the master at that. You'll be on tour with Foreigner in Australia, and you'll see a youth orchestra, and you'll see a bass player, which I know this happened today. This bass player needs to come on tour with Foreigner, and then next thing you know, you've taken them under your wing, and they're playing with Foreigner. And I mean, that's a really special gift you have.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I feel like, I really I feel very lucky for the opportunities that I've had. And I feel that some of them have come from my playing. And like all musicians, some of what we get also comes from hard work and also from being in the right place at the right time. And it's always a beautiful thing, especially when you see someone so talented that just one phone call would make all the difference. Just being like, wow, here's this person, and they're in like right now I'm in Bristol, Tennessee. I'm working with a lot of bluegrass folks, and I'll see, like I have I'm living in a garage house behind my friend Blake, who's this incredibly killer mandolin player who has a jewelry store. And like, I've been able to get Blake on all these awesome recordings remotely that I've been doing. And it feels so great because he deserves to be there anyway. He's just as good a musician as me, but maybe he didn't have Julia, or maybe he didn't have those people that connected him in. But anytime somebody shows up and really gives everything they have and just hits that home run, I'm always it just like moves my heart, and I'm just like, I want this person to like shine. I love that. I love that feeling myself, too.
One thing that I was really excited to talk to you about was karate, because we're both black belts in karate. And I realized in teaching class that a lot of my skills and all of the lessons that I took on trombone, like I really know how to teach people karate. And so there's a lot of crossover skills there.
It affects my music very profoundly. I think there's obviously all the mind-body benefits you get from martial arts, but also like, as a classical player, we all are in a lot of high pressure situations and often uncomfortable situations, and often situations where we have to be very technically viable and also emotionally vulnerable on stage, maybe in not the most amazing time where everybody loves you and it's supportive. So it's been very powerful with karate to be able, especially in those moments that aren't the most comfortable moments of music, to be able to have more athletic skills that you could apply from a more peaceful place, let's say.
You said that you're in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And so what's next for you right now?
My bluegrass is getting better. I've been working on my bluegrass a lot. I'm going to come back to New York very hillbilly. It's going to be interesting. I'm going to stay down here for a while. I'm really focused on recording. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's a little bit more work and oriented. Like I'm doing a lot of work for HBO and for movies that were finished, but can't have an orchestra now because we can't convene as an orchestra. So I do a lot of layered cello work. But also I'm just getting to do like a lot of just collaborating with, I'm kind of just saying yes to everything, because I like everybody in the pandemic, it's a really hard time. And we all kind of, I think, had our kind of journey with that, especially those of us from New York City, and especially those of us musicians, that this has so compromised our lifehood. I mean, a lot of people are like, I'm going back to work. It's like, what does work even mean for us right now? It's complicated. It's hard. So I kind of changed my mentality about 2 months ago to like just imagining that this was like music camp. I was like, I'm just going to take everything that comes my way recording wise and just use this year to become better at music.
Yeah. Dave, it's been amazing talking with you.
Incredible.
We love you. It's so good to see you.
I love you guys. I hope that in 2040 we can all do a great chamber music tour.
Please, I hope next summer I will be seeing you and working with you and playing with you. And we appreciate you spending the time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. And I can't wait to watch the other episodes because I've already seen that you have cool friends of mine that I haven't seen in years. So I was like,
Oh, awesome.
very excited
So
about
fun.
that. Thank you guys
Thank you.
so much.